Welcome to High Stakes History. Today we're going to explore modern world history with the Enlightenment. So our question today is, what if people started questioning everything they thought was true about kings, religion, and even science? So there's a long history of democracy, and the best way is Hammurabi's Code to look at the first laws. Hammurabi's Code highlights an eye for an eye, or if you steal, you lose a hand. It's very barbaric, but it's the first example of law that we have, and this existed thousands of years before any existing republic. Fast forward to the ancient Greek city-state of Athens. They practiced what's called a direct democracy. And basically, if you had enough wealth, majority of the time it was old white guys, could vote on whatever was going on. A direct democracy is inefficient when you have a large population. However, when you have a small population like a city, such as Athens, direct democracy is okay. But when you're looking at the modern context of, say, the United States, it is not practical given that there are over 300 million people in the United States. Next, you would have something called the Roman Republic, where it introduces the idea of representation. Basically, the electorate goes and votes for somebody to make daily decisions on their behalf in government. Very similar to what we have in the United States with our Congress and the President of the United States. We vote. They go to Washington, D.C., they take up debates, they talk about bills and laws and different things, and they're supposed to act in the best interest of the people. Now, between Rome and medieval times, certain men decided to take up arms and create monarchies. These monarchs, in a lot of ways, were like dictators, and some of them were even hereditary. So basically, it would pass from father to son and so on. Some of these monarchs begin to abuse their power. And specifically, England, we'll talk about King John. So if you ever watch the movie Robin Hood, King John is the king in Robin Hood. Okay. And he abuses his power so much that the nobles, the nobility or the barons, decide to rebel against him. And what ends up happening is that the barons end up gaining so much support from the peasants that King John is forced to sign the Magna Carta. Now, while the Magna Carta is not a constitution, it is a legal document that puts restrictions on kings. This is the first example of a king being below the law or having to abide by the law. Why is all this important? This is all important because it plays a role in modern politics and in our democracy today. The Magna Carta, however, did not settle the issue between kings, nobility, and peasants. So the Magna Carta only established that the nobility had the right to overrule the king and had a voice in government, where the peasants, which is probably 80 to 90% of the population, didn't have a say in government. And that led to the Glorious Revolution. The Glorious Revolution is an event in history where Protestant peasants were unhappy under a Catholic king, King James II, in England. So the nobility and the peasants invite William of Orange and Mary to come rule in England. In short, William and Mary are welcomed with open arms. There's no bloodshed, and King James flees in self-imposed exile to France. One important thing that comes out of this, though, out of the Glorious Revolution, not just that it was considered a bloodless revolution, but the English Bill of Rights. The English Bill of Rights establishes that William and Mary will be co monarchs. And it also is the outline to the American Declaration of Independence. Very similar wording is used when describing how a king can be a tyrant and some of the abuses the king did. This glorious revolution gave way to what we consider the Enlightenment. And for this episode, we're only going to focus on two of the Enlightenment thinkers, specifically Thomas Hobbes and John Locke. So, England, after the Glorious Revolution, ends up going through a civil war. England ends up going through a civil war. Thomas Hobbes writes at the beginning, and John Locke writes at the end. In the beginning, there's a lot of chaos and anarchy. That's what happens when you don't have government. That's why we need government, is to prevent chaos and anarchy. And Thomas Hobbes advocates that human nature is instinctively evil. Okay. And that we need a strong central government, preferably a monarchy, to rule over people and keep them in check, keep them on their best behavior, as it were. Where John Locke counters this and says, no, 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 no. I've seen what a strong central government does. I'm writing at the end of the English Civil Wars, and the crackdown is not good. They're cracking down on innocent people and politicizing the attacks. Locke advocates for what's known as a social contract. People give up rights in order to have other rights protected in England. The other thing he advocates is that people have natural rights and that they are not inherently evil, but it is based on their upbringing. I hope this helps sow the historical context for the Enlightenment and the Atlantic revolutions. Next week, we will begin covering the causes of the Atlantic revolutions. As you can see, some of these events, that democracy is not a new idea to the Enlightenment, but is traced back thousands of years and is just repeating in modern world context. Thanks for watching.